too. Beth, are we good?
Yep, you're ready to go.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
All
we'll
right.
start.
You can
Thank you.
proceed.
So let's get ourselves going. This is the City of Ellensburg City Council meeting for the evening of Monday, February 1st, 2021. We'll start the evening with a roll call.
Engel?
Here.
Goodlow?
Here.
Lamb?
Here.
Zilquist?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Morgan?
Here.
Tab?
I'm here. Thank you. We do have a proclamation. Before we get to that, just while we have folks coming online, and I did see that one of the folks, I wanted to just re-emphasize, I think it was Mr. Hobbs and a couple of the other people who commented last time, spoke to our ability to have in-person meetings as opposed to remote meetings. And so I just want to make sure that folks are aware that this is, the legislature extended the emergency proclamations via passage of a joint Senate concurrent resolution. It's 8402. What that means for us is that in-person attendance at public meetings will remain prohibited per the original proclamation, but now extended to the end of the declaration of emergency by the Senate concurrent resolution 8402. And I think I want to emphasize, I think, two things. One, I think to Council Member Engel's point last meeting, that if you look at the number of participants that we're having and the input that we're hearing, we're actually probably hearing from more people through our Zoom and online meetings, even though I recognize access is an issue for some. And that even if we chose at this point to attempt to do in-person meetings, we would be violating the law. And that's not something we're prepared to do at this point as council. So with that, we'll go into proclamations. This month, actually, this being February 1st, is African American History Month. I believe on the line we've got AJ Cooper. We met AJ over the summer. Just a brief introduction, and then you can tell me if I blew the whole thing up, Coop, and then go on. But basically, AJ came here as a graduate assistant and to be a coach for for Central's football team. And I believe he's continued to do that. I think he's the coach for the defensive backs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then also is continuing to pursue his education. We've had some exchange setting this up, and I've got to tell you, it's just a pleasure that you're part of this community. I really appreciate your willingness to read the proclamation. And with that, if you would, let it rip.
Yes, sir. So I'm AJ Cooper. I'm originally from North Las Vegas, Nevada. Like Bruce said, came here to further my education, work on my second degree. I'll be done in March, so in a couple of weeks. And then I'm here to change some young men's lives while I'm at it. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas in 1986, Congress passed Public Law 99-244, which designated February 1986 as National Black Afro-American History Month, and further directed the president to issue a proclamation calling on the people of the United States to observe February as Black History Month with the appropriate ceremonies and activities. And whereas President Clinton declared that African American history is one of the great human chronicles of all time. It is the story of men and women who, with extraordinary courage and faith, prevailed against centuries of slavery and discrimination to build lives for themselves and their families and to contribute immeasurably to the strength and character of our nation. African American history is ultimately the story of America's struggle to become a more perfect union. And whereas African American History Month provides us an opportunity to recognize these pioneers in African American history, such as Katherine G. Johnson, one of the gifted and talented mathematicians at NASA, who performed the complex calculations that enabled America to successfully achieve spaceflight. Thurgood Marshall, a tireless advocate for civil rights and the first African American on the Supreme Court, who had successfully argued against school segregation in front of that same court. Poet Gwendolyn Brooks, the first African American to win the Pulitzer Prize and the first Black woman to serve as poetry consultant to the Library of Congress. And whereas we recognize the African Americans who contributed to building our local community, such as the first Black settler, pioneer Frank M. Henson, a Civil War veteran who came to work in Kittitas County as a ranch hand in 1886 and became an integral part of the community. The Congregation of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, established in 1908, John Golden, veteran of the Spanish-American War's 9th Cavalry, baggage master at the Ellensburg Northern Pacific Railroad Depot, and one of the first to integrate Washington State baseball in 1906. And Rosalind's William Craven, Washington State's first African-American elected mayor in 1975. And whereas the city of Ellensburg recognizes and honors the many African-Americans residing herein who contribute to the strength and vibrancy of our diverse community. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Ellensburg does hereby proclaim February 2021 as African American History Month in Ellensburg and encourages all citizens to join in this observance by building bridges of understanding and friendship with our African American neighbors.
Thank you. That was a lot.
Thank you.
I move that the mayor sign the proclamation. Second.
So a motion and second to, for the mayor to sign the proclamation declaring February African American History Month within the city of Ellensburg. Is there any further discussion? Again, thank you for reading and attending tonight. And if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you. I don't believe that I have any award.
Muted, Bruce.
Thanks, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you guys. I'll see you
Thank
guys
you.
soon.
So Beth, did you get the motion and the vote?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, apologize for that. I don't know really where that one came from. Okay, so then don't have any awards or recognitions. Let's move to approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Brings us to consent.
I move approval of consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. That brings us then to page 69, if you're following along your agenda packet. This is, let's do a COVID update before we get to page 69. Dr. Lawson, are you on? I'm not seeing you.
I am on.
Oh, there you are. I got you. Okay.
Somebody took my picture off, so.
I think it was personal.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I pretty much take everything personal these days. I figure that's
I would
probably,
think you'd be past that by now.
No, everything's about me. So I am gonna talk about a lot of other people today, though, because I think we as a community should be really proud of the work that was done over the last couple of weeks in Kittitas County. Before I get to that, I just want to talk about the governor's change to the metrics moving forward from phase 1 to phase 2. That is good for us. I could just stop there. But prior to the change where we had to meet 4 metrics to move from phase 1 to phase 2, we would never have been out of phase 1. And the other change that was made last week was to allow 2 weeks to look at data between making a change between going to phase 1 from phase 1 to phase 2. So when that also is really good for us, and it's especially good if you are a business owner. If you own a restaurant and we move into phase 2, you don't have to worry that we're going to be moving backwards in 1 week. So both of those things have been really good for us. I've spent some time in the last couple of days talking to both business owners, also talking to the athletic director at Central, talking to the athletic director at Ellensburg School District. People are able to move forward here. Just so you know, the Ellensburg cross country team has their first meet of the 2020 season this next Saturday in Yakima at Franklin Park. So Ellensburg School District is planning on football and soccer at Central Washington University Tomlinson Stadium because they felt it was safer starting in February if we're able to move into phase 2, which I think we're going to be able to. So those are really good news. I think there's a lot of people that looked at that and said, well, why aren't we able to move into phase 2? Well, we do not meet criteria to move into phase 2, at least not in the region that we're in. In our current situation, if we only looked at Ellensburg numbers, our incident rate is down 28% in the last 2 weeks. Our hospitalization rate is down 60% of folks with COVID-19. Our ICU rate is at 78%, and our percent positive is at 11%. That would be the only one of the metrics if we were meeting it only as Ellensburg alone. There's only one metric that we're not meeting in the South Central region, and I think we will be able to work with our health officers and administrators, and hopefully the elected officials of all those counties can work together so we can move forward on those metrics. But I'm very hopeful that we're going to be able to move forward on the metrics and move into phase 2. Yakima is the big unknown. Benton Franklin has lots of hospital capacity. So when you look at the counties that we are now with, two of the metrics are hospital capacity. Well, Benton Franklin has more than what they need, and they can absorb some of those patients from Columbia and Walla Walla. And so we really need to work with our partner directly to the south, which we've been doing for a long time now. So I think those things are good. Our numbers are really good. I think if you took the numbers just from today, moving back 14 days, we'd be below 200 in an incident rate. And it's been a long time. You know, we don't look at those numbers just from today because we want to make sure we have all the data coming in. We look back for 2 weeks, but we are at 347 today, and our percent positive is 8.3%, which is really good. The county's doing really well. Central's doing well. Central's working on their case and contact investigation. They are doing prevalence testing. They're working on plans for vaccinations of their students and staff. So what I'd really like to talk about is how proud I am of the IMT, the community as a whole, and the people that are doing the work. So I unfortunately pulled my hamstring, or my quad, and I pulled my hamstring a couple of years ago, and I spent 5 days on the couch. Those were probably the 5 most positive public health days ever. That was this last week when everybody was able to be at the fairgrounds, be up at Cle Elum, seeing all the happy faces and the people that were really excited about getting COVID-19 vaccine. So some numbers. So between Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, we've given 4,596 vaccinations in Kittitas County. If we subtract that 84 between the Ellensburg Clinic and Cle Elum Clinic, we only had 84 of those, of that clinic population. So of almost 2,200 that were out of county. So if you look at our county population of as of 2 years ago, 47,933, and you take it that we've given 4,512 vaccinations in Kittitas County, we have a 9.4% vaccination rate. I'd like anybody to look at their county and say that their county IMT and the management team and people like Rich Elliott and all the people that are working on this KVH are not doing a really good job. We've had our problems for sure. We've definitely had some IT issues, and being on the lead of this thing, and certainly having national attention has brought us some good and some bad, just like national attention always brings good and bad. But we've got a lot more people loading themselves into our wait list. We have clinics happening this week. We have 975 doses of Pfizer that are being given at the fairgrounds in the next 4 days. That'll turn out to be somewhere about 1,073 doses because we're getting more doses of vaccine per vial. We only have one clinic happening in Cle Elum this next week. It's we don't know the date of that yet, but we have about 250 doses of Moderna vaccine that we'll be giving up in Cle Elum, and we keep asking for more and more vaccine. I spoke to Representative Schreier today in Washington, D.C. I had a nice talk with her for about a half hour talking about what was happening here and what we needed. And we are being watched, and I think the people that are watching should be proud of what's happening here. So we are continuing to ask for more vaccine. We're saying we're doing a good job. We are ready and available to do, I think Rich said, and Tristan could correct me if I'm incorrect, but he would like to ramp up to 500 vaccinations daily in each one of the sites. We have the infrastructure to be able to do that. We just don't have the vaccine currently. And that's the end of my report, unless somebody wants to ask any questions.
Great, thanks. Questions?
Oh, but I'll make a comment. I'm down one dose and I get the second one on the 11th, and I want to say thank you very much.
I think
Yeah,
I had a very sore shoulder for a couple
Go
of
ahead.
days.
Nancy G.
I wanted to express my appreciation too, as a person who's a little challenged technologically. I found the registration process to be pretty easy. I congratulate you all for having that. And I'm on the list for Wednesday, so I'm pretty excited about that. I did have a question, but I also wanted to say thank you for that, and thanks to everybody who's making that vaccination clinic go so smoothly. All I've heard is wonderful comments about people's experiences there, and I think it's a real credit to this community and the networking in this county that we've worked on and built for a number of years. So thank you for your help with that. I did have a question. I'm wondering if there's any conversation or plan ultimately for those people who don't have access to the technology or to the registration process and who are homebound, who really have issues and barriers to getting vaccinated. Is there any conversation about that happening with IMT?
You know, Nancy, that's a really good question. We realize that there are people that are being missed. So I can tell you the homebound piece, Catherine Patnode, who's one of our geriatric nurse practitioners, is working closely at getting basically lists of all the homebound people, and she's actually going and giving vaccination to folks that are homebound. We have a big group of people, a big group of volunteers and staff that are currently working with people that are not technologically savvy to help them with the process, and we have registered a lot of those folks. We also realize that the Hispanic population, I don't have the data. I have the data on ages, and I have the data on where people were from the clinics last week. The majority of the people who got vaccinations, were over 65. So we definitely were hitting the population that we needed to hit. But my guess is we're missing some of the Hispanic population. We've talked about working with the churches. We are going to be working with the schools in regards to kind of a separate vaccination process there for faculty and staff. Just another vaccination clinic. They're not being moved to the front of the line in regards to vaccines. There's been a big discussion in regards to agricultural workers, both in just kind of the South Central region and also our county as well. So we are looking at those things. We know that we're missing people, and we're probably consistent with a lot of the data that you see in other parts of the United States, that it's heavily weighted to those people that can deal with technology, the people that have been home. Tristan and I were just talking this morning about the grocery store workers, for example. How are we gonna reach them? We also are going to be have been working with Twin City Foods. So we're reaching out to those people. We have not forgotten them. I mean, I think currently it's less that it's less the populations that are being forgotten than the not having the vaccine available. So, but thanks for bringing that up.
I have a question, Bruce.
Good.
Yes, thanks, Dr. Larson. Appreciate the update. It is really good news, and thanks to everyone who's been making that possible. My question is, I know it's a bit early, but have you done, or is there any forward planning going on right now in terms of how the next vaccination, or the next vaccines that are coming on, the J&J vaccine that may be available within the next month or so? And I guess what I've been hearing and reading is it has a lot of advantages in terms of its transportability, if you will. It doesn't require the cold storage, but also that it could be pretty easily administered at the pharmacy level. So, and in that sense, do you have any idea of what kind of daily capacity our combined pharmacies could mount?
So there is a lot of work being done with the future vaccines. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is, I mean, I think what we will deal with some is public perception that it's not as good as the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. That is not true. It just depends on which data you're looking at. And certainly if you're looking at, as a 64-year-old, am I going to die of COVID-19? I would feel comfortable getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I think that's what we're going to see with the data. The advantages are what you mentioned. We don't have to worry about cold storage, so we can get that out to the farm worker community, for example, a little bit more easily. It's only a one-shot thing, so my guess is almost all of our agricultural workers will probably get Johnson & Johnson vaccine if it gets approved, because they're moving from Benton Franklin County up to Grant County and Okanagan. Or are we going to see them again for their second vaccine? We'll probably use that at Central with the college students. We are hopeful in regards to that. I mean, the only bit of all of this that's not very hopeful, and the piece to remember so we don't drop our guard just because we have this great news in Kittitas County, is that we do have COVID-19 variant disease in Washington State. We've had three cases of the B117 variant. The governor has really made it a high priority to become kind of a gold standard in regards to identification of variants. So I would expect a lot more work to be done in that regard, and I would expect us to have more variants. The modeling indicates that B117 variant will probably be the predominant variant in the United States by March or perhaps early April. It's more infectious, but maybe not more virulent. So, but it is covered by the vaccine. So the sooner we can get more vaccine into people's arms, the less bodies there are to allow the virus to mutate. And so that's where we're going to get out of this. So
I had a question on the
Oh.
variant. Is that the presence of the variant, is that picked up during normal testing? So if someone tests positive for COVID, is that the test that will indicate whether it is the original virus or the variant?
well, sometimes it's the person who's negative. There's an S deletion that can be dropped out, and it kind of falls out of it falls out of the testing. And so what's been happening with those tests that we're not really sure with, they're just kind of sitting in the lab because we haven't had the ability to do all of the testing that we needed. So that's been pushed. So I just think we're going to see more of that. The pharmacies are all interested in doing COVID vaccine. So that was the other part that you were asking. Safeway's already doing Moderna. I'm sure that they would love to do a one-shot of Johnson & Johnson vaccine if it's available. And I know our other pharmacies have expressed interest, as have all of the clinics, Central Washington University, the health department. I think when all this is done by the end of this spring, every clinic provider, any healthcare provider in the county will be registered to be getting vaccine. And then it's just, or being able to give vaccine, then it's really just getting the vaccine that's the issue.
Thank
we
you.
have no more current vaccine coming in.
Right.
So what we have is what we have. But our vaccine ordering czar at the health or at KVH is ordering vaccine like a crazy person every day. So they're doing a really good job.
And then I assume also been hearing the importance of maintaining the message that even as people are being vaccinated, that the importance of masking and social distancing is still significant. And I mean, I think people are obviously tired, weary, fatigued from having to do this, but it's probably not the time to let your guard down. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not the time to let our guard down because it's for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's not enough vaccine for everyone. And number two, we don't have enough data that people can't transmit mild disease to somebody else. So somebody who has had the vaccine that has had both doses of their vaccine, we don't have enough data that says whether or not they can transmit that. There was some scuttlebutt happening at the CDC today that there was going to be an announcement in regards to that. It did not happen, so I'm not sure what that is, but there's a lot of people looking at that data. But we should not let our guard down. I had said mistakenly that we had no more further holidays for a while, but we have the Super Bowl holiday. And if I could encourage everyone to watch the Super Bowl at home with their immediate family bubble, that would be my ask for Christmas this year, which is coming up in a week or so.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, anything else then? I think the only other thing I would just comment, having gone through the clinic at the event center, is simply not only is it done well, but the people that are doing it, whatever stress is going on behind the scenes is not evident for the folks that are coming through the clinic. It's pleasant. People are welcoming. They're encouraging and supportive. And I think that's another really important play. It's just important to recognize and acknowledge. So I thank everybody that's been part of that, because I know a lot of this has been run on volunteers. So thank you.
Hey, Bruce, one last comment. I think we should appreciate the fact that Dr. Larson is who he is, because it hasn't gone unnoticed that there have been several county health officers in Washington who haven't made it through the last year in their jobs. So I really appreciate the fact that we have someone who's committed to this and is willing to stick it out. So I think we're very lucky.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Were you going to make a comment?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we know, especially at a public meeting tonight, that the wait list is temporarily closed. Because we went from a wait list of about 4,000 to 100,000 in a matter of a couple hours. So we are working with the tech support to make sure that perhaps that was a glitch, or perhaps we got really popular someplace else, since our wait list is twice our county population. So that will be rectified. I just want to assure the public this is a temporary closure. We will have that service available again.
So perhaps the national kudos weren't a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have one last question, Mark, real quick. If we wanted to volunteer to help with the clinic, who should we get in touch with?
Yeah, so so you've reached out to Casey Knudsen. Tristan's making a funny face, but we do have a new hired vaccine coordinator person whose name is escaping me, which is why I told Casey's. But if you reached out to Casey, she could get that to the person that needed to get to. Or if Tristan, you have the name of the person and a contact, that would be great. We have been blessed with an abundance of volunteers right now. So let us work through what we've got. We have a lot of great help. And right now we could not get through the background checks for all of the volunteers we have who have offered themselves up. So thank you, and thanks to this community. Our volunteers are carrying the effort. Please do not bombard the vaccine coordinator if you can help it right now, because this is going to be a long, long journey, and we're going to need vaccines for months to come.
Right. Thanks. Okay. Again, Dr. Larson, thanks for the update and your willingness to spend time with us. I think it's helpful, certainly for council and hopefully for anybody that's watching, listening, or part of the audience here. It's greatly appreciated. Okay, so that will actually then move us to page 69 in our agenda. These are board and commission applications. We've got, I think we ended up with 5 people that have applied for various boards and commissions. We have 3 people that have applied for the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee and 2 folks for the Arts Commission. We do have 3 openings on the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. We have one opening on the Arts Commission right now. So I'll just go through the list as it's in our packet. For those folks who have applied, this is just an opportunity to present sort of your interest in the particular commission or board that you've applied for. Tell us perhaps a little bit about yourself, and if then council has questions, it's an opportunity for that, for council to ask you questions and for you to respond. Also note that we will not take action this evening. We wouldn't take action again until our next meeting on February 16th. So Lacey Dawson.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
It's good.
All right. My name is Lacey Dawson, and I'm the program manager over at the Kittitas Valley Event Center, aka the Fairgrounds. I've been there for just about 2.5 years now, and just starting to get involved further in the community, and thought the lodging tax would be a pretty logical place for me to go, since we are both a contributor and a collector. So we've got a little bit of everything going on there. And yeah, I think it'll be great.
Great, thanks. I appreciate your interest. Council, any questions of Lacey? And again, I appreciate that you are both a receiver and a collector. And just for folks that are listening or sitting in, lodging tax particularly needs a balance between those folks who receive money from the lodging tax fund, as well as those people who collect money from the lodging tax fund. And I believe we have 2 receiver openings and 1 collector opening right now. Great, thank you, Lacey. Marie, I saw you on earlier. Did you hang long enough? Marie Smith?
Somebody muted me, but am I
No,
unmuted now?
Yeah, we're
Okay,
good.
great. Well, my name's Marie Smith. I was born and raised here in Ellensburg, and I'm 5th generation. I spent 20 years in real estate, and twice I was president of the Kittitas County Association of Realtors and part of the state process also. I've been on the Jasna Valley Board, volunteered for Spirit of the West in its beginning years, and spent 20 years on Jasna Valley Board, 9 years, and currently running on the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame Board, and been involved in many community-related things over my 70 years. I'm interested in serving with lodging tax to learn more about how it works and why, after finding the process of applying a real challenge. And I would like to serve this community that I feel fortunate to live in.
Great, thank you. Council, any questions? Again, thank you, Marie. Then I think, James Nail,
Hi,
we got you.
good evening. And well, my background in the community is primarily with Kittitas. Well, I mean, our family lives here. My kids live here and my grandkids live here. I've been with Kittitas County Search and Rescue since 2005. The Washington State Search and Rescue Volunteer Advisory Council since 2013, and which is they apply for the lodging tax fund because for the last several years, the state search and rescue conference has been held here in Ellensburg. And I've been involved in that application process since the first time we held that state conference here in 2013. Also involved at Kittitas, at KBH on their Patient Family Advisory Council for the last 2 years. My focus is primarily on whatever the work is at hand. I'm retired. I really like to be involved in the community. I think the lodging tax process is, having done it, applied several times, and with the SARVAC being a recipient of it, it's a good process. I really have a lot of faith in it, but obviously it's just seems like a good team to be a part of.
Great, thank you.
I
Any
have
questions?
a question.
Sure.
I do have a question. So, Mr. Nail, I'm a little unclear. I can't remember because didn't have the book here today, but did we award money to search and rescue?
Not to Kittitas County Search and Rescue, but to the Washington State Search and Rescue Volunteer Advisory Council for the Washington State Search and Rescue Conference that has been held here it's been held here 3 or 4 times now. We started, the first time was 2013.
Yeah. So then my second question would be, would you find it difficult to be on the board, on the commission, if you have to recuse yourself from judging those particular ones?
No,
that's the way we do it.
Yeah, I would hope that I would still be able to be involved in, because I'm usually the one that writes the application for the State Search and Rescue Council. I would hope I would be able to do that, continue to do that.
I don't think that's the problem. It's just that you can't.
Yeah,
we have to ask you then.
But recusing myself is not a problem. And let me correct something that I said just a moment ago. In 2013, Kittitas County Search and Rescue did apply and receive funds from the Lodging Tax Council for the first time we held the conference here, because we were actually the host that first year. In years since then, it's been the Washington State Search and Rescue Volunteer Advisory Council, which is easy to get confused. I apologize for that.
Okay.
No, that's great. Thanks. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Any other questions of Mr. Nail?
No.
I want to just thank you for clarifying. I was trying to figure out how search and rescue tied to lodging tax and whether we were sending people out for lost tourists.
We do that. We did that last night, as a matter of fact. I believe it was a Bellevue resident. Yeah.
Any other questions of Mr. Nail? Again, thank you for your willingness to serve and for your engagement in the community. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, so then our next applicant is Fiona Corner, or Comer. Is that right? Comer?
Corner.
And Fiona's applied for the Arts Commission. So if you would, just a little bit about yourself, you're interested in the Arts Commission, and any other questions that we might need to have answered.
Great. So my name is Fiona Corner, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. I've lived in Ellensburg for 4.5 years, and I've served at Central Washington University that entire time. I'm originally from Monterey, California. I attended Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon for my bachelor's degree, and then I moved to the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio, where I earned my master's in education. And then in 2016, I moved to Ellensburg. And in early January, after reading City Council's Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Subcommittee report, I felt this call to increase my involvement in our community. And I started thinking about my own sense of belonging in Ellensburg and thought about how sometimes it's difficult to know where I fit. And I also thought about how I talk with my students all the time about the best way to increase your sense of belonging is to become invested and engaged with your community. And I thought I should probably role model that for them. I also strongly identified with what Mayor Tabb shared 2 weeks ago, and he shared that the best way to have an impact on your community is to start locally. And I felt really validated by that because I share that with my students all the time. And so I looked on the website and I saw that the Arts Commission had an opening, and I was really excited. I think that art and creativity are uniquely able to bring communities together. And art gives us an opportunity to celebrate our experiences, our intersectional identities, and our incredibly diverse perspectives. And I would really love to be a part of working to accomplish that. I think my experiences serving in higher education and nonprofits would lend themselves well to the commission, including my own creativity, my experience with learning development and social media, and my large and small event planning skills.
Great, thank you. Council, any questions? Again, Fiona, thanks so much for applying. And again, I want to just emphasize, we won't make a decision this evening. We'll do that at our next. That would bring us to our final applicant for this evening, also for the Arts Commission. And I'm reading, it's in my thing is Rob, but it looks like you're Rob, yes?
Yes, Mayor.
So Rob Repose? Okay.
Correct. So I'm Rob Repose. My wife and I have been together 20 years. We have 5 boys. The oldest one is 30. The youngest one is 12. I'm an Army vet. We have a horse ranch 7 miles north of town. I'm an independent agent of the RV aftermarket. My experience comes from in the 90s. I drove the wagons down in Toppenish doing the mural tours and some historical tours. I got to meet with a lot of the artists, and while I always liked Western art and all art for that matter, it really gave me a new appreciation and an understanding of how art plays into the way we remember history. And so I got to actually meet with the artists while they were talking with the subjects, and got a real insight into the history behind the murals that were being painted. I've kind of kept in touch with that over the years and then kind of lost touch. But recently, my wife and I made signs for last Veterans Day, honoring the local vets, which is a program that we hope to continue every year and grow. And currently I'm working to decorate the Legion Hall, which has zero anything on the walls. We're trying to get some memorabilia and historical art throughout the Legion Hall there. I also work with the Spirit of the West. I've been working with them trying to improve the program. It's kind of been passed through different hands over the last couple of years. And one of the things that I think I would like to see with Spirit and the Arts Commission, a lot of the groups in the area, is we don't work well together. And I'm personal friends with some vaqueros, Mexican cowboys, Native Americans, Buffalo Soldiers. There's a lot of history that could be pulled into all these groups and pulled into maybe some of the art that people are exposed to. So my goal in being on the Arts Commission would be to try to get some more diversity in what we see, and also modern art. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be pulled together. I think that every group seems to have their own thing, and I think that if everybody worked together, it could probably we could have a little bit better program than what's out there. Not trying to be a hero or change the world, but that's just something that I've observed.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Okay, great. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Mary, do you have a question?
No, not of this applicant.
Okay, great. Again, thanks everybody.
But I do have something else. Can I jump in now?
Sure.
So I know we're supposed to wait 2 weeks and see if there are other applicants. Since the lodging tax has had open positions now for some time, we've been asking for them. I would like to ask if we could get those 3 people put on so that we could have a full quorum instead of struggling to meet quorum.
So let me turn to staff and ask, I don't want to breach anything with lodging tax protocol just because it's so weird.
Mr. Mayor, there's nothing that would prevent you from waiving the rules and go ahead to appoint this evening if you wish to. The action for appointment is a council action, so council would need to move and vote in favor of the placement of the applicants, but you're welcome to do that, I believe.
Okay, great. So council, did you get that? So what I would need is a motion to appoint Lacey Dawson as a collector, Marie Smith as a receiver, and James Nail as a receiver to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, thereby filling all vacant slots with appropriate applicants.
So move.
Second.
So a motion and second to appoint Lacey Dawson as a collector, Marie Smith as receiver, and James Nail as a receiver to the Lodging Tax Advisory Commission, recognizing that we have 3 current vacancies and that this will fill the commission. Any further discussion? Mary, thanks for bringing that up.
The only thing I'll say is if you are appointed, our meeting is at 2:00 on Wednesday. I'd like to see you there.
That's the spirit.
It'll be in another one of these.
Stacy, were you going to speak?
Yeah, I was just going to say that all 3 applicants on their application said they're outside the city limits, and the people currently on lodging tax are all within the city limits. So I think it'll provide some good diversity too.
Great, thank you. And I think just for the other applicants, we're not moving forward right now. The quorum has not been the same issue for Arts Commission. And I think because we do have 2 applicants for the 1 position, it gives us an opportunity to kind of think about how we can best match skills with interest and move forward.
Question?
Yeah.
Yeah. The meeting at 2 p.m., is it possible? Do you have the information necessary to send me an invite to that so that I can?
Yes,
Yeah,
we'll get it to you.
Okay.
I assume we have your email, so we'll get it to you.
Yeah, and again, just so everybody's clear, all of the meetings right now are on Zoom. The only thing we'll need to get to you is the link to get into the Zoom meeting, as well as any materials that would be reviewed at the meeting. Okay, Stacy, any other comments on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye, that motion carries. Thank you. That then
Thank
brings
you.
us to citizen comment on non-agenda issues. This is an opportunity for individuals to approach council over matters which council has purview, which are not part of the agenda. If you wish to approach, you will be given 3 minutes. We would ask that comments made are respectful, not derogatory. Recognize that no action will be taken at this meeting for any issue brought forward during a non-agenda comment period. And with that, does anybody wish to approach council over non-agenda? Christopher Hobbs. And then just to make clear, I'm not sure we have, it's a three minutes to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Christopher Hobbs, 302 North Water. I'm representing myself, and I'd like to speak tonight to rules of procedure. I appreciate your comments at the beginning of the meeting, which was the first topic I wanted to bring up regarding rules of procedure. I appreciate your commenting that we are operating in a remote Zoom setting, which is in contradiction to the regular rules. So the rules have, I understand, been suspended. And to speak to your comment regarding the increased attendance, I would venture to suggest that increased attendance may very well be because of some of the subject matter that's being discussed. So consider that as well. That again, my reasons for bringing up that in the past are that when you're dealing with somewhat controversial issues, I believe that it is often better to discuss some of those things in person. The second item of rules of procedure, I refer to item 4.1, which is the very first item of all meetings, is to be the flag salute. And I'd like to notice that we have not been doing flag salutes on the Zoom meeting. I understand that in a remote meeting, it might be a little awkward since there's not a shared flag to salute to, but I like the words of the flag salute. I like that it emphasizes the unity and our oneness as a nation, which I think is something we all need to be reminded of, and especially the last 6 words, that with liberty and justice for all. I think we need to remember both of those when we're dealing with matters that concern all citizens. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. I also see Landis Hansen.
Yeah, can you mute it? Sorry. My friend's here too. So I have some concern about the language that we used for Black History Month.
Address.
Sorry?
Landis, can you say your address for the record?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, 1015 East 18th Avenue. So my concern would be that we used African American instead of Black, and using African American leaves out the history of non-American Black people who contributed to liberation movements in the United States. It also disregards African Americans who were expatriated, such as Assata Shakur, Eldridge Cleaver, and W.D. Du Bois. And I think that we should, moving into the future, make sure to use Black History Month as it is the name of the official month via the federal government, and also more encompasses the truth of Black liberation here in the United States. I would also like to ask, is there going to be time for public comment on agenda item 11B, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That would be the end of what I have to say then. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. I see Teresa Plough.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Teresa Plough, 140 Woodhouse Loop, and I'm speaking for myself. On the meetings for people being able to participate or not, that was addressed at the beginning of the meeting. I do, I've mentioned it before, people who live out of town that are internet challenged. I also have people who do not have ready access to internet that live within town, and they're having a difficult time. It's hard to get into a public place where you can get where there's Wi-Fi for people to be able to participate those meetings. So there are some people out there like that I just wanted to let you know. I look forward to when the meetings are more in person. And I also do think that you're getting more involvement because of the topic over the last year. And the controversies and all that are going on with it within town. For instance, I noticed it when seemed like the renaming of the park would be an example of that, where it was mentioned in a previous city council meeting that you used to not have as many participants involved, and like there were 70 some, and we were hoping to get thousands after that, maybe, or if we could. And so, yeah, public participation is, if you're seeing that, I think it's because of the topic. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Corey Canoyer.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Awesome. I live at 316 East 4th Avenue next to the Safeway. And I have a question and I just had a weird instance today at City Hall. So this is about handbills, and this is about like section 5.44.040. And how it's like unlawful for any person, firm, or corporation to cause to be posted, thrown, or deposited on any street, alley, or public place, or upon any vehicle thereon in the city of Ellensburg, any advertising materials, samples, handbills, dodgers, circulars, so on and so forth. I have it printed out here, and I was in City Hall today, and I went to 3 different offices because part of this language says that nothing in this section shall prevent such placing of materials as described above if performed by an officer, employee, or agent of the city of Ellensburg as part of official city business, or if separate prior approval has been obtained in each instance, and if all other applicable ordinances are complied with. And myself and the 3 offices in City Hall were not aware of any sort of approval process or what that language could possibly mean. So I was kind of wondering if there might be one among you who could clarify that. And if so, is there a way we can actually include an approval process where we can like actually flyer, missing cat, missing dog, or like mutual aid services around the town? That's, I guess, all I have, but it's about handbills. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Actually, what I might ask you to do is either contact, I don't think we got your contact information. I know we got your address, but contact the city manager's office for the process. We won't neither answer the question nor address the issue tonight, but we can certainly start the process of getting clarification. So thank you for coming forward. Does anybody else wish to approach over a non-agenda item? Seeing no one, then we'll move on. Again, I appreciate people taking the time to provide us feedback. We're now at 8A. This is the business requiring a public hearing. I ask for your patience. There's a script that I'm going to have to go through. This is for second reading. The purpose, so this is a legislative hearing. The purpose of this legislative hearing is for the City Council to consider second reading and adoption of Ordinance 4867, annexing into the city parcel 10876 located north of Sanders Road. This public hearing is now open, and I ask cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. If you wish to participate in the hearing, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you are connected by telephone only. Wait until I've recognized your request and you have been unmuted. You should then begin by stating your name and address, indicate whether you're speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Your testimony must only address the matter under consideration in this hearing. Any questions of staff are to be directed through council. Each person will have an opportunity to address council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Before we do hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
It's Mayor Jamie Ailing with the Community Development Department. And just one quick point of order, just so that we're clear, in the script, I think we merged the 2 items you mentioned. I just want to be clear, there are 2 annexation hearings tonight, item 8A and 8B. And we go to ordinance 4867, but then included the parcel information for the person annexation, which is item 8B. So,
Mr. Mayor, that was
I
the
have no
script that I
idea.
gave you, and that would be my error. So what's in the packet is correct.
okay. So all the language is correct. We'll just note that it is before you is the second reading of ordinance 4867, addressing 4 parcels on the west side of Cascade Street, owned by Ray Weisbeck was the applicant, and it's parcels 258-133, 018-133, 038-133, and 058-133. This is the second required public hearing and the second reading of that ordinance. Notice of this hearing, we did publish this in the Daily Record. We mailed it to property owners within 300 feet, and we posted, and the applicant posted the property as required by Ellensburg City Code 15.210. This particular annexation has come before council before. The initial council meeting was back in October 5th, where you received the notice of intention. That notice of intent was accepted by council, and a simultaneous adoption of RS zoning, residential suburban zoning, was determined at that meeting. That went forward to the Planning Commission, who met in November at a public hearing. And as part of that meeting, interesting enough, the Planning Commission questioned that simultaneous adoption of the residential suburban zoning. They felt that the property should reflect the majority of the properties in West Ellensburg, and that it should be zoned residential low. The applicant was not present at that particular hearing and wasn't able to provide any rationale for his RS request. But after further study, staff looked into the issue and would still recommend the RS, residential suburban zoning, for this particular proposed annexation area. The parcels are designated blended residential neighborhood in our comprehensive plan, and it might be beneficial if I shared my screen real quick. Bring up the map, which is on page 89 of your packet. This is the proposed annexation area. It's Exhibit 2 in your packet, which shows the, and it's not the best color coordination on this map, but the area that is part of this annexation are outlined in black, the 4 parcels. The zoning directly to the south of this property is RS, and then the rest of the property in West Ellensburg is RL. It's bound on the east by some public reserve, and then this doesn't really show up on here, but it is industrial light city limits on to the west. This comprehensive plan designation is the blended residential. You can see it's kind of this brown color, which is on page 90 of your packet. And the property that is RL is a residential neighborhood designation. So to maintain consistency, staff looked at this and determined that it would still be better to maintain that same zoning that consistent with the comprehensive plan, and recommends the RS zone. Further things to support this is in the RS zone, with its proximity to Dollar Way and being sandwiched on both sides with power substations, RS would allow the applicant an opportunity to do some small scale retail on these properties if it's not determined beneficial to continue with his residential build out that he has currently going on the southern 2 properties of a duplex and a single family dwelling. So staff would recommend adoption of ordinance 4867 and do the second reading, and I can stand for any questions.
Great, thank you. Floor is open to testimony from the public. Each person will have an opportunity to address council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. Excuse me. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Does anyone wish to speak to this matter? Seeing no one, does staff have any, or Yeah, does staff have anything to add?
I have nothing further.
Are there any persons in the audience who'd like to add non-repetitive information or evidence about this matter? Seeing no one, excuse me, council, do you have any questions of staff or the public? Seeing none, public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may begin discussion and deliberation of this matter. Council.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4867, approving the petition for annexation P20-083 for parcels 258133, 018133, 038133, and 058133, located on Cascade Street.
Thank you.
Second.
So I have a motion and second to conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4867, annexing 4 parcels located on Cascade Street. Excuse me. Are there any further questions? If the clerk
I
would-
have a question. Is the RF zoning part of the ordinance, or do we need to make a decision on that too?
That is in the ordinance itself, Councilmember.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If the clerk would call the roll.
Engel,
Yes.
Goodlow,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Lilquist,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
Morgan,
Yes.
Tab.
Yes. Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, annexing parcels 258133, 018133, 038133, and 058133 to the City of Ellensburg, Washington, assigning residential suburban zoning classification, providing for the assumption of the existing city indebtedness, and fixing a time when the same shall be effective.
Great, thank you. That brings us to page 102 in your packets. If you're following along, this will sound, so then I'm assuming, Jamie, that I should be reading what I read the first time for this one. Is that
Correct, other than inserting the ordinance number 4868.
okay? Great, thank you. So again, this is a legislative hearing. I ask for your patience. The purpose of this legislative hearing is for the City Council to consider second reading and adoption of ordinance 4868, annexing into the city parcel of 10876, located north of Sanders Road. Public hearing is now open, and I ask your cooperation in the following. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. If you wish to participate in the hearing, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you're connected by telephone only. Wait until you have been recognized and you have been unmuted. You should then begin by stating your name and address, indicate whether you're speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Your testimony must only address the matter under consideration in this hearing, and any questions of staff are to be directed through council. Each person will have an opportunity to address council for an initial period of not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it'll be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Before we do hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
There is. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Jamie Ailing again with Community Development. And before you tonight with this one is a second reading, a second required public hearing and second reading of ordinance 4868 for the annexation of the one property located north of Sanders Road owned by Monica Person. Consistent with our Ellensburg City Code, Chapter 15.210, we did provide the adequate public notice for this hearing. It was put in the daily record. It was mailed to property owners within 300 feet, and the applicant posted the property on site. This annexation was also brought before council for a notice of intention back in October of 2020, where that notice of intent was accepted and forwarded to the Planning Commission to hear the petition. That was held in November, and the Planning Commission had a unanimous recommendation of approval and adoption of RS zoning. Council held a public hearing on this item December 21st to consider the annexation petition, which was approved. And at the conclusion of that meeting, the first reading of ordinance 4868 was conducted. Staff still recommends RS zoning for this parcel to be annexed. RS is supported by the industrial residential designation in our comprehensive plan, and staff would recommend adoption as submitted. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Great, thank you. Floor is now open to testimony from the public. Each person will have an opportunity to address council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Does anyone wish to approach council on this matter? Seeing no one, does staff have anything to add?
I have nothing further.
Are there any persons in the audience who'd like to add any non-repetitive information or evidence about this matter? Again, seeing no one, council, do you have any questions of staff or the public? The public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter. Council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I move second reading and adoption of ordinance 4868, which is approving petition for annexation P20-088 for parcel number 10876 located at 1215 Sanders Road.
Second.
So a motion and second to conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4868 to consider annexation of a parcel north of Sanders Road. Any further
faster, Stacy.
any further discussion? Hearing none, if the clerk would call the roll.
Engel,
Yes.
Goodlow,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Lilquist,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
Morgan,
Yes.
Tab.
Yes. Motion passes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, annexing parcel 10876 to the City of Ellensburg, Washington, assigning residential suburban zoning classification, providing for the assumption of existing city indebtedness, and fixing a time when the same shall be effective.
Great, thank you. That'll bring us down now to 9A. This is 125. And as we're doing this, I'm just going to quickly apologize to the audience. I know that there are people who are wanting to provide us feedback on the diversity, equity, and inclusion ordinance. I did not realize, as I reviewed the agenda earlier, that it would take this amount of time to get to the point where we would be discussing that. So hang with us if you do have input. And again, I apologize for the structure of the agenda this evening. With that, we'll go to 9A. This is a first reading of proposed ordinance authorizing the issuance of 2021 Waterworks Utility System bonds.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Jerica Pasco, Finance Director for the City of Ellensburg. We also have with us tonight Alice Ostick, Bond Counsel from Stradling, Yoka, Carlson, and Roth, as well as Maggie Marshall and Thomas Toppler, Financial Advisors from PFM Financial Advisor, and Ryan Liskey, Public Works and Utilities Director, to help answer any questions you may have on this later tonight. But beginning on page 127 of the agenda is a proposed ordinance as prepared by the city's bond council authorizing the issuance and sale of not to exceed $11 million Waterworks utility system revenue bonds to pay or reimburse the costs of certain capital improvements to the Waterworks utility system, to satisfy the debt service reserve requirement if necessary, and to pay the costs of issuance and the sale of bonds. The Waterworks utility system revenue bonds currently has approximately $9.5 million in outstanding bonds. The Waterworks utility system includes the water, wastewater, and stormwater utilities. Bond issuance and sale is needed to provide the funds for certain capital improvements listed in Exhibit C of the ordinance, which includes projects such as the Bull Road Extension, Illinois Well Outfitting, and the Anderson Road sewer extension. The Finance Department is currently soliciting proposals for the purchase of the bond and will select the purchasing entity or bank from those proposals. No rate of interest for any bond may exceed 5%, and the true interest cost to the city for any series of bonds may not exceed 4%. Based on preliminary debt service schedules for the new bond and an estimated debt service schedule for the new bond with an estimated interest rate of 3% when including costs, the estimated all-in true interest cost is approximately 3.07%. However, actual interest rates and costs will be determined based on the bank responses to the request for financing proposals. The final maturity of the bond will be no later than 20 years after the date of issuance. Staff recommends council conduct first reading of the proposed ordinance authorizing the issuance of Waterworks utility system revenue bonds. And again, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you. Council, questions? I just one, just more, how does the utility bonds, the Waterworks count against our bond cap? And if so, where does that put us?
I think Alice is here to speak on that tonight.
Derek, good to see you all. I've come out there and met with you before. It's good to see you all on Zoom. Alice Ostick with Stradling. The answer to your question is that no, it doesn't. Under state law, debt capacity for cities is calculated based on the assessed value of the cities when we're talking about general obligation bonds. So that's bonds for your general governmental purposes. In a utility context, it's sort of a market-driven calculation. So the city has, promised that it will have sufficient revenues within its generated by its utility customers to support both the operations and maintenance of the system and then any additional debt. And so it's really capped by, the reality of what your cash flows within the revenue structure are.
Great. That's great. Thank you. Any other questions? Council.
I'll just make a comment that the projects this bond is supporting are outstanding projects. We've been working on them for quite some time, and they will be of real benefit to the city of Ellensburg.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Council?
Come on, Stacy. I'm giving you an opening.
I move we conduct first reading of the ordinance authorizing the issuance of Waterworks utility system revenue bonds.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and second to conduct first reading of ordinance 4870 concerning Waterworks utility bonds. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's much less cumbersome on your time though, Alice, for you to do this than it is to come over for the 3 minutes that we give it. Just an observation. Okay, let's move on down then.
You want me to read the ordinance?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm scrolling.
You're not looking forward to me reading this is what you're thinking.
No, I don't care. It's a good bond.
There we go. An ordinance of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to contracting indebtedness, providing for the issuance, sale, and delivery of an aggregate principal amount not to exceed 11 million of its combined Waterworks utility system revenue bonds to provide funds, one, to pay or reimburse all of a portion of the cost of plan of additions, including the projects consisting of certain capital improvements to the Waterworks utility system, including the Bull Road Utility Extension, Illinois Well Outfitting, Anderson Road Sewer Extension, Craigs Hill Pressure Zone, wastewater treatment facility clarifiers, and digester/GBT building electrical upgrades. 2, to satisfy the debt service reserve requirements if necessary. And 3, to pay the costs of issuance and sale of the bonds, creating such accounts or special funds necessary or desirable to pay and secure the revenue indebtedness authorized herein, fixing or setting parameters which respect to certain terms and covenants of the bonds, which may be issued as a single bond or in serial maturities, appointing the city's designated representative to approve the bond sale terms and providing for the sale and delivery of the bonds and providing for other related matters.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't want you to read. I didn't want you to read that. But I think it's always good to get digesters out of the way. Let's move on. So now I think we beat 11A. This is page 160. This is a street removal request. And just
Tree
context
removal.
what, I'm sorry, what?
Tree removal, not a street.
Tree,
You said
Yeah.
street removal.
street tree removal. I got it. Let's move on. John?
Thanks for having me here this evening, members of the council and mayor. I'm John Morrow, city employee for the city of Ellensburg. Yes, before you tonight is a street tree removal request from Jeff Snedeker at 404 North Sampson Street. And Jeff would like to speak here in a little bit. And Jeff, if I'm mispronouncing your last name, please tell me. Our city arborist went out and took a look at the tree, and we actually recommend denial of the request based on two things in the code. The sidewalk is not damaged and the tree is in good health. However, sometimes with street trees, there can be other circumstances that the homeowner would like to speak on. It could cause an adverse economic impact to the homeowner, and those are things that are not in our code, and that's why Jeff is going to be here tonight to talk. But based on that, should you, after he speaks, decide to authorize the removal, then a resolution would be prepared for the next council meeting on the consent agenda. Before I turn it over to Jeff to speak to you, do you have any questions of me or the code?
Yeah, and then actually, let's hear from Mr. Snedeker, and then if we do have questions, we can go back and forth. So, Jeff, if you would.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Just to clarify a few things, as you can see.
Before you get into it, can we get your name, address? Just
I apologize. It's in my letter. I thought that was good enough. No, I apologize. My name is Jeff Snedeker. I live at 404 North Sampson Street in Ellensburg. My petition letter, you can see on page 162 in the agenda. But I do appreciate the opportunity just to add a few brief comments about this. I did want to make a statement about the photos that are included that show moss on the roof. I realize they don't seem like much. I do want to say that this is the third roof that we've had since we moved in 1992. This roof that you see here was replaced in 2009. And that, again, that's the second replacement we had. The first roof that we had when we moved in was a cedar shake roof, and we've only had one leak in the roof itself, which is a good thing, but it was clearly related to moss buildup underneath the cedar shakes. And of course, when that happens and we have to go through a repair process, of course, we're concerned about what happens next. Okay. As I mentioned in my original letter that you can see there, I did mention a concern about the root system for the house foundation. The visual evidence on the outside is a crack in the foundation, more prominent activity at the base of the trunk over the past 30 years, and encroaching roots that can be seen underneath the house, all of which cause me to be concerned about this. Closer inspection, however, has the roots entering from a perpendicular side to the house. So this is on the tree is on the west side of the house. The roots, again, they're everywhere underneath, but in closer inspection, they're coming from the south side. So I can't. I'd have to withdraw this as like concrete proof that there is actual stress on the foundation that is directly from this particular tree. So but nevertheless, there's a crack, there's more activity, and I just have concerns for the future. Then the desire for the tree removal actually began as a result of wanting to make landscaping improvements to the property. After years of trying different ways of growing a lawn, we finally enlisted the help of professionals, should have probably done that in the first place. The landscapers we approached about installing a lawn or in some fashion made it very clear that the size of the tree, its shade, its root system, and so forth will make it very difficult to have a front lawn. Potentially, if we tried to do it even with them, potentially wasting time and money. Since we're restricted in what we can do anyway at the moment because the tree belongs to the city, obviously the incentive to make improvements is now, quite a bit different, at least for the front. As we stated as was stated in our initial letter, the volume, because the tree has grown, and we're not going to argue that we're not going to argue against its health. It's an incredibly healthy tree. But the volume of stems and leaves, particularly from this type of tree, have created increasing problems in terms of retention of water on the roof, deterioration in gutters and that sort of thing, such that we've had to, again, replace them over the years. We realize the tree is healthy. We truly support the benefits of trees and other plants in the environment and in our community. But as this tree has grown, the time and the extent of maintenance, including paying for annual pruning, for replacing gutters every so often, and then 3 roof replacements, it's just built up over time. I can't tell you, I can't make the case as the city policies state that this is causing extreme hardship to us or anything like that. But we are, in effect, what we're asking for is relief from something that we really have no control over, but we have all the responsibility for maintaining. So it does create some activity or some awkwardness. We don't ask for this permission lightly. We feel the impact, however, to us is significant over time, and it's only going to continue with this particular tree. We understand that if this does go forward, then a replacement tree must be provided, or we're happy to follow whatever the appropriate guidelines are. And in closing, I'll just say thanks for the opportunity to allow me to speak, and we'll of course abide by whatever you decide. But we hope you will consider this, as seriously as we feel. So thanks. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Council, questions of either John or Jeff?
I have a comment or a question of John. John, you and I have had discussions in the past about locust trees.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And it's my recollection that we both feel they are not appropriate street trees. And I'm kind of surprised to discover they're still on our street tree list. I thought it had been updated.
No,
They and Siberian elms and, as far as I'm concerned, Norway maples should be on that list.
The list has not been updated, and it still appears on the list. But yeah, we've had those discussions.
I feel really concerned because this is a tree that is invasive, spreads seed everywhere, produces more. And I think if you've got lots of room and stuff, it's one thing to have one of them in your yard. If you have a small property, it's not a really appropriate tree, and we don't encourage them being planted on the street right of way.
So if I can clarify, as we're going through this conversation, my understanding is that part of what has been presented to us is that there's an adverse economic impact presented through the roof repair and other issues that the Snedigers have dealt with over the years.
Yes.
And that for us to move forward would require us to make that or to support that determination.
Mr. Mayor, this is Terry Weiner, City Attorney.
Yeah.
There's actually 2 parts that are potentially at issue here. The first is what you just mentioned, the adverse economic impact. The second one criteria under the code would be that the said tree or trees present a practical difficulty other than adverse economic impact, creating substantial hardship for the affected property owner. So it could be one or the other or both of those.
Okay, so-
The tree healthiness is not.
Okay, great. So then that would speak to Mary's piece about it being invasive and blah, blah, blah. Okay, council, where are we going?
Are you looking for a
We need a
motion or discussion?
Yes, yeah, I think we need a motion. What, so Terry, what do we need? We need a motion to direct staff to come back with a resolution.
If
to-
that's the direction of council, if that's the motion, yes, it would be to direct staff to come back with a resolution.
I'd like to see us go in that direction.
So somebody make a motion. So the motion we need then would be to direct staff to come back with a resolution supporting the application from Jeffrey Snedeker for street tree removal at, was it 404?
Mhm.
Row 1 North Sampson.
No, 404, I think. 404 North Sampson.
404.
Yeah.
I
that
so
was
moved.
it.
Also move that.
Okay, so we have motion and second. I think, did we get a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. So we have motion and second to direct staff to prepare a resolution for council's review for removal of the honey locust tree located at 404 North Sampson Street, consistent with the application made by Jeffrey Snedeker. Further discussion.
I'll weigh in. I'm always reluctant to ignore the recommendations from staff, particularly on tree removal from our arborist. But this case does suggest that the hardship element is something that really an arborist isn't in a position to evaluate, nor should they be. So I think, though, it does suggest to me that we need to revisit or review our street tree ordinance to make sure that this sort of approach is consistently applied, because I'm not sure that all cases are obviously different, but I think we need to be very consistent in how we approach this. And it's a bit of a gray area, and I can appreciate re-roofing, having gone through that myself, and it is expensive. And I've also taken out some trees that were pretty expensive too. So yeah, I can see that. And I think the replacement tree, I know that the way the code is written, it indicates that a replacement tree on the approved street tree list would be planted, or I believe there's an option to make a donation to the street tree fund. Personally, I would like to see a tree replaced, but I don't think we have the ability to force that. Just saying. And as far as the type of tree, I don't know. Not all street trees on our list are probably appropriate, as is pointed out, for every lot. I think this may be the same variety that we are installing along University Way.
No,
No,
that's ginkgo trees.
those are ginkgo.
Ginkgos, okay. Locust, ginkgo, okay. All right, withdraw that part. So, yeah, I think I'm sympathetic to the case, but I do want to make sure that we're very consistent on this sort of thing going forward. And I think I'm glad that Mr. Snedeker or Dr. Snedeker, commented on this, because I think when I read the report, it was referring to maintenance related issues. I was thinking of lawn maintenance. And while that's important on some level, I don't consider that to be nearly as burdensome as structural damage or roof repair. So I appreciate the clarification.
Great. Other comments?
Mr. Snedeker,
I was just gonna
Mary?
say, as a homeowner, this part of the code has always been frustrating to me, and I understand where Mr. Snedeker's coming from, where you have to, you have all the responsibility to care for the tree and maintain your property, but don't have control over it. So I think the tree canopy in our community is very important, and I want to maintain the appeal that Ellensburg has in our trees, but it's always a difficult one to navigate.
Okay, I would remind us that we're still doing the DEI next. So unless you have non-repetitive, I would prefer us to move forward, because it feels like this is going to pass.
I have a quick comment with the recommendation based on what Mary said, maybe it's time to reevaluate that list of approved street trees too.
And I would very much like to serve on such a commission group.
We can do that.
We're not going to do that this evening. We have a motion and second on the floor to approve, to direct staff to come back with a resolution for street tree removal at 404 North Sampson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Then could we have a trill on the French horn? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Okay, that'll bring us down to 11B. This is 166 in our packet. This is a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. It's a draft ordinance. As we're going through this, this is not an ordinance. This is merely to solicit feedback on proposed language, and then council will take action after discussion. So do we have a staff report? Well, that'll simplify it.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I wasn't prepared to do a staff report. This work product came from the subcommittee that had originally started the DEI process. The ordinance that's before you is a product that I believe Nancy Lilquist originally gathered information to assemble. That was incorporated into a number of different city diversity ordinances were incorporated into a single draft review that went to the staff. Terry had an opportunity to review it, as did I. The modifications that we felt were necessary, we performed, and we submitted that back to the subcommittee for review and comment. And what you have before you this evening is the sum total of that work product and effort. Essentially, this was not intended to be considered this evening as a first reading ordinance. It's simply a draft for you all to understand where we're at with the process, and also give the public an opportunity to review the document and make any comments or recommendations that they would like to make back to you. So at this time, I think that it would be appropriate for the council to go ahead and hold discussion on the ordinance, and then ultimately the action that we requested of you is to provide staff direction.
Great, thank you. And Nancy may want to speak to it, but I just want to reemphasize what John indicated, that the ordinance before us was drawn from a number of communities throughout the state, both from Eastern Washington as well as Western Washington. It's also incorporates the work that was done and reflects the wording of the report that the subcommittee presented to council, and the council subsequently adopted. So as we're going through it, I think it's important to keep that in mind. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're not creating a brand new mechanism. But the ordinance does reflect the recommendations that came from the report that the subcommittee put together and that council subsequently endorsed and adopted. With that, we could start with public. If anyone wishes to speak to the ordinance, and then we'll do council discussion. Again, I want to emphasize this is just not, it's an opportunity for council to weigh in on any portion of the ordinance. If there are changes, we can accommodate them, and then if we choose to direct staff to come back with first reading. Does that make sense? So does anybody wish to speak? Anybody in the audience wish to speak to the ordinance that's in the packet? Okay, I'm not. Okay, Teresa Plough.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Teresa Plough, 140 Woodhouse Loop. I had the volume down. I don't know if this is the ordinance on IDE. The
Yes.
unnamed ordinance. Oh, okay. I'm surprised I'm the only one speaking.
We've got a couple other hands up, Teresa.
Okay. Let's see. You probably won't let me go put eye drops in and let somebody else go first. I'm having trouble seeing. I've had eye surgery.
No, suffer so that you can testify. No, it would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
What I would ask is that as we're going through this, if to keep things non-repetitive, and let's start with about 3 minutes. So I do have, it looks like Christopher Hobbs is next in line. And then Teresa, we'll get back to you when you're ready.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for your time and thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on this ordinance. I'd like to start out by saying that I am not in favor of this ordinance. I'd also like to clarify that I am very much in favor of the concepts of equality, as our founding documents claim that all are created equal. I'm also a huge proponent of treating everyone with respect. I think that treating people with dignity is equally as important. My reason for being concerned about this is that I don't know that it's necessarily the job of a city government or any kind of government to dabble into this type of an ideological area that deals with morals and virtues. I think that the efforts to treat our neighbors fairly and treat our neighbors with respect, to treat our neighbors with love, should come from areas like the church or community groups and the individuals, and not be in any way mandated or dictated or even driven by a government entity, because I think that generally always runs into problems. I'd also like to remind the council that whereas the whereases in this shows that the IDE committee recommended this, just another reminder that the Planning Commission did not. And I think that in some ways speaks to that concern that this may not necessarily be the job of the city council and so forth. I'm very familiar with the ideas that are being promoted. I'm familiar with it from the standpoint of it being very much identity politics, which I think that can cause some division, and that's my concern. I'm seeing a lot of situations where this dividing people up into groups ends up being more divisive in the end. This is basically critical race theory, which is a lot of these ideas are coming out of UC Berkeley. I understand that. It's a way of looking at the world as though everything is about oppressor and oppressed. It's to me, it seems to be very much of an obsession with race. And I know that race and these ideas are important to us, especially in these days and so forth. But I believe that this is something that can be handled in a little bit different way. I love the fact that you're starting a conversation, that you're pushing, wanting to do a conversation. I would love to see more conversation. I'd love to see more discussion outside of city council. This 3 minutes is not really much to work with. I'd love to see some more debates go on and to get deeper into it. I think that there's been ideas presented, but there has not been a cohesive coming together and discussing it. One issue I have with the document as presented is under section 1.88.020. And I understand you're probably there's very likely to go ahead with this. But
Mr. Hobbs, I'm going to have to ask you to yield the floor so that we can have others. I've got a bunch of folks in line now. Thank you. Teresa, are you ready to speak, or Landis is up next in my queue?
Hi, yes. Sorry. I would just like to.
So as we're doing this, I'm sorry, I apologize, folks. We do name and address, and whether you're speaking for yourself or others is always helpful in this. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm speaking for myself, 1015 East 18th Avenue. I would love to say that this commission that is being put forward has no power to create legislation, change legislation, or erase legislation. This committee is simply for recommending changes to the city council. With that being said, I think that this is a good idea to have a body that can monitor the health of our cultural and social communities is a great idea. For those that may not be for this, I would say that why would you not be? Because again, this commission really has no power. If you're afraid that it's going to change anything, where would that change come from? Secondarily, for those that would be for this, it's a good idea because, you know, at least we're getting voices out there. I think that some of the language I would personally want to have this commission be a little bit more able to enact change. But for Ellensburg, I think that this is a good step. If Ellensburg really isn't a racist town, as some people like to point out, then this wouldn't make it racist because it has no power, like I said. From the comments that I saw in the report itself, it seems as though there might be a divide, and this commission is a step forward in the right direction for Ellensburg as a whole and for our social and cultural health as a city. With respect to identity politics, I don't see where that comes into play. This is protecting religious minorities, racial minorities, ethnic minorities, and those with disabilities, ensuring that their voices are heard or at least seen. Yeah, I'd like to close with that. Thank you so much for allowing me to have my time.
Thank you. Teresa, you're back on?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Teresa Plough, 140 Woodhouse Loop. I'm going to keep it real brief about the ordinance. I do object to it as written. I'm not going to point out a lot of things, but as I went through it as closely as I could, there seemed to be a lack of specificity in it. I would urge your attorneys to go back and look at things like page 2. Let's see, appointment, term, composition, item D. I won't even go into specifics in that. It's very vague. I think it's written in a way that the reader can't even understand, and you might work with an English teacher on that, the attorney. Okay, let's see. I think, okay, I am concerned about section 2, page 4, severability, that if any portion of this ordinance is declared invalid or unconstitutional by any court competent jurisdiction, such holding anyways, that the remaining portions of this ordinance are still considered valid. I want it looked over for constitutionality in advance. I would hope that the attorneys have done that with a fine-tooth comb, please. And then I'm going to go on to another issue, and it is how I do think that this is going to change our community. And I want you to understand where the fear is coming from in this community by a lot of people. The city, the actions of the city council in moving forward with this ordinance being written is creating reason for people to distrust the process. They are concerned that their lives will not be individually enriched as it says that it will be in documents that you've written. I believe in this ordinance also, and probably in the ID subcommittee report, and that the community's well-being and vitality will be better as a whole. If we don't take everybody with us, you're going to leave out a lot of people. And this is, I think, one of the primary concerns. It has to do with hiring practices. Those who have went into the Racial Equity Alliance.org website, looked over the materials, studied what have happened in other cities and the GARE reports that are in there. And we know that you're using the toolkit. That is the procedure that simplifies this for you to be able to move forward on this. Following a program like that, may get us into a situation, and I think it's happening, I know it's happening in higher universities, liberal colleges, where the hiring processes are specifically set up with essays to be able to screen out people who do not have a progressive ideology, that do not adhere to IDE, racial equity type toolkit, all of that type of terminology. The language is different. You might have highly qualified applicants will be overlooked because they don't fit the
Thank you.
criteria.
Tracy, that's our 3 minutes. Thank you. Let me move down. Then we have Shauna Kessler.
Hi, Shana Kessler. My address is 1508 North B Street in Ellensburg. I would like to point out that as a diversity, equity, and inclusion project, the key component here is not only the diversity, but also the inclusion aspect. It's the idea that everyone deserves a seat at the table. Everyone deserves to have their voice heard and represented. And that's not currently something that most of us who are marginalized in this community are experiencing in Ellensburg. Even just looking at city council members and seeing a predominantly white space, if not entirely white, and seeing that, you know, I don't see myself represented on city council. The idea is that this commission, task force, whatever you decide to call it, is going to be an opportunity for those who don't have any power within this community to identify ways that this community can work better towards equity and equality. It's not taking a seat away from a white, cisgender, heterosexual person of Christian faith to give a seat to somebody else. It is saying this person is also welcome at the table. And to echo Landis's sentiment from earlier, if you're convinced that Ellensburg is a place of equality already, then you shouldn't have any concerns with this commission moving forward.
Great, thank you. Next up would be Sarah Omrani.
Hey, Sarah Omrani, 7790 Cook Canyon Road. I just want to thank City Council for responding to this changing culture. I have lived here since 1996. I've experienced racism here since 1996. Got noticeably really horrible after 9/11. And there are a lot of people that live here that call this place their home, that are for all intents and purposes locals, and they don't feel welcome in their own community because of the rampant racism. And so I just really commend you all for taking a stand. I really, really think that obviously this is not creating a diversity and equity committee is not going to solve racism in Ellensburg. It's going to take us coming together as a community, but it is a wonderful step. And those of us who are marginalized, those of us who do experience violence in this town from racists really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, I've got Ingrid Winter.
Hi, Ingrid Winter, 1202 North Water Street. I would like to say that I'm in full support of this. I'm very thankful that y'all are doing this. Our nation was founded under the ideals that all men are created equal at a time when Black men, women, and children were in chains, and when women didn't have the right to vote or any rights, and when Native Americans were continuously being killed off in an ongoing genocide. So this is definitely needed. Ellensburg is a racist town. It is a town that makes white supremacists comfortable. So as far as I can see, the only people that would take issue with something like this are racists, white supremacists, and those that are comfortable with them being in our town, which by extension makes them equally bigoted. The people who are triggered and upset by talks of inclusion and diversity, those are white supremacists. The people that are upset by BIPOC voices being heard, those are racists. To use a Southern saying, hit dogs holler. If the churches if the businesses, if the other community members were actually doing something about this, then this wouldn't be needed. So no, we cannot just let the churches do it. We cannot just say, hey, I don't see any racism. You don't see it because you're white. You don't see it because you don't have friends, family members, lovers who experience racism and other forms of bigotry. So in closing, thank you for doing this. Everyone who doesn't support it, you really need to do some self-reflection because you are part of the problem. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. I have Adalaya Strom.
Yes, hi. So Adalaya Strom speaking for myself. I'm at 1015 East 18th Avenue in Ellensburg. First of all, I want to say that I think this is a great idea. Starting conversations is very important, and obviously that's what we're doing here. I think that a big issue in Ellensburg is that the majority of the population is already being represented in their council, and not a lot of minorities have that same representation. And, you know, I think the college is a big magnet for minorities, not to mention the Hispanic community and in Ellensburg and in neighboring communities. But basically promoting equality is important as always. And I think that's something that Ellensburg needs to do a little bit more of. And I think that it's important for a council to start trying to take these next steps because when people in these public positions that are, you know, being watched and seen by the community are taking these steps to promote equality and making sure everyone is represented, it encourages others to follow suit or at least start those conversations, which are always important to have. There's an example of the BSU on campus, which isn't made to divide the campus at all. It's actually made to educate others, and all people of all colors of skin, all ideals, all beliefs are encouraged to join. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the either the language in the ordinance or the ordinance? Council, I want to go back as we're going into this and just thank everybody who's taken the time and spent the evening with us to provide us feedback. So a couple things as we're going through this, just process-wise, if we do choose to move forward with directing staff, then there will be two readings of the ordinance also, which would provide opportunity for people to provide feedback to us as we're going through before adoption. So council.
Mayor Tab.
Yeah.
I believe you kept Mr. Hobbs off and he was about to get specific about potentially changing some language. And I would appreciate hearing his thoughts if there is specific language that folks think we need to edit.
So Mr. Hobbs, if you're still, I see you still there.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for allowing me a little bit extra. I'm sorry to get so long-winded in the first portion. The one thing that I was concerned about is section 1.88.020. Section A outlines who will be chosen for the commission, and I would like to see some language in there that would require participants on this commission to have lived here for a few years, perhaps 3 years, because they will be making recommendations to the council regarding things having to do with the culture of Ellensburg. And I think that it would be difficult for someone who has just moved here to have a good grasp on the culture of Ellensburg to be able to make adequate recommendations. So I'm suggesting perhaps 3 years. Thank you for the opportunity for the suggestion.
Great, thank you. Okay, council.
I have a question surrounding that. Do we have language of residency requirements other than inside or outside the city for any of our other commissions?
No.
Inside and outside, yeah.
But
like,
not
I know
time,
that there's requirements that you have to live in the city or out of the city, or so many seats that are allocated for each,
Right.
but to any of our current commissions that give recommendations to city council dictate the length of time you have to be a resident here.
I don't believe so.
That's correct.
There might be a requirement for city council members running for election to be residents.
There's a 1 year, I believe, a 1 year residency for council.
I don't think there is for anything else. So, in fact, maybe a question for the attorney, since it's been raised by the public. Would we be in some ways prohibited from considering a residency requirement? I mean, term of residency legally?
This is Terry Weiner, city attorney. I don't think there would be a prohibition against including it. It just, we haven't, as you noted, it's not required of any other commissions. So
that's a separate question. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Mr. Clark.
Council, other observations or input?
I thought it was well written. I appreciate the time put into it. There were sections of it that made me want to open up all the other commissions and update them. So overall, I was in support of it, and the way that it's written itself.
So are we ready for a motion? Or let's ask Terry, would it be best at this point for the process that we've outlined to have a motion to direct staff to come back with the ordinance?
That would be appropriate.
Okay, council.
I so move.
Second.
So we have a motion and second to direct staff to come back with a first reading of the ordinance relating to the creation of a diversity, equity, and inclusion commission, as outlined, as presented in our council packet. Further discussion?
I would just say I appreciate everyone in the public who stuck with us tonight to provide their thoughts on this. And I do support this, and I also agree with the sentiment that the conversation is what's important. And I guess we've heard a lot of folks talk about sort of a concern, anxiety about something, about this coming forward. I would just encourage everyone to channel their energies into a constructive way. And whether you're a member of this committee going forward or not, there's every meeting will be a public meeting. There's ample opportunity to be involved and help shape the discussion. So it's been said by several people who commented that all voices should be heard, and I agree with that. We're past, I believe, the council was past the point of discussing whether the conversation should occur. It will occur, as far as I can see. The question is, who's going to participate in that conversation? So I will support this. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
I want to speak to it.
Sure.
I've heard comments saying that we shouldn't be doing this, that we don't have the right to be doing it, that it has nothing to do with city government. I would beg to differ with that bigly, because it's happening in every community across this country. And it is an important aspect. For too many years, we have swept things under the carpet. It's long past overdue. I'm very much in favor of this passing.
Great, thank you. Other comments?
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the community that's participated in the conversation tonight. Thank you for your observations and your concerns. With respect to Councilmember Miller's conversation about conversation, I would say this commission and getting it in place is the first step for this community in a long endeavor I think it will take to initiate conversations that many of you have referred to. We do this because we feel like if we don't, those conversations will never happen. And we'll wake up 10 years from now when we have a huge population in this community and the problems could be even worse than they are now. not that they're huge, but there are issues for this community. So we very much believe that we're doing the right thing. We want to work with you. We want to hear from you, and we want to include you in those conversations. And that's part of what we want the commission to do, is start those conversations.
Thank you. Other comments?
Just wish we could do more.
So we do have a motion and second, and I would remind everyone that's listening and staying with us through this is that the motion is to direct staff to come back with the ordinance itself. We conduct 2 readings of the ordinance, and I would ask, since we're really not modifying what's been presented in our packet, I believe that it will come back to us at the meeting on February 16th for first reading, and then for second reading and adoption in the first meeting in March. So in terms of timeline and opportunity for further input, just be aware that those are probably the reasonable timelines for us in moving this forward. So we do have a motion and second to direct staff to bring the ordinance back. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we have 12A, a manager's report, which I didn't see.
Mr. Mayor, council, there is no manager's report this evening. However, we do have need of an executive session, and there will be 2 items of discussion during that session. One authorized under RCW 4230-140 to consider collective bargaining issues related to the current open contract. And then secondarily, under RCW 4230-110 sub 1 sub C, to consider a real estate transaction. We expect that the total time dedicated to this discussion will be 15 minutes, and no action is anticipated.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask that someone resend the link to the executive session because I'm not sure I can find it again.
It's on your calendar.
I will be glad to do that.
Okay.
But also just if you accepted it, then it's on your calendar.
I may or may not have done
Right.
that.
Right, just saying, theoretically. Okay, let's kind of rip through council reports. It's
Mary
been a
already
long night
left.
We've gotten through, huh?
Barry already left for the executive session, I think.
Well, he's started the clock. It's good, makes it shorter. So Tristan, do you have anything else?
No report.
Stacy? You're muted.
I'm looking at my calendar. Someone else needs to go first.
Okay, Nancy Lilquist?
Yeah, so we had a utility advisory committee meeting, and we discussed and voted to extend some gas rebates, and also discussed, kind of we're watching some bills, a bill in the state legislature related that may or may not impact our gas utility. The Yakima Basin Fish and Wildlife Recovery Board has 2 positions open if you're looking for work. There's an office manager outreach position as well as the grant coordinator. And I can get you, well, probably if you go to their website, you can find the position descriptions. And my environmental commission meeting was canceled, so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Nancy Goodlow?
Yes, I attended the same UAC committee meeting with Councilmember Lilquist. I missed the Law and Justice meeting, had another obligation. And I talked with a couple of reporters from the Campus Observer for comments on the ordinance and comments on the public health regional structure. Also, just want to let the community know that Fred Meyer has vaccine and they're registering people.
Great. David? Thank you.
Great. COG meeting on the 20th. Mayor can probably provide a better report than I can following that ongoing business. And then I missed the homelessness and affordable housing meeting due to technical difficulties with the invitation on the calendar, but it's a short report.
Great, thanks. I lost Mary. Are you?
That's what Tristan was saying. Mary left.
She
to
left.
go to the-
Oh, I
She's
thought it was.
waiting for us.
I thought it
in-
was Terry left. Okay,
Yeah,
never
I-
mind.
Okay, so Planning Commission met last week and they are doing great things. And we have the best planning commissioners that sit through 4.5 hour meetings. It's amazing. And they do all their reading. They're phenomenal. And Parks and Rec still has the naming survey for the downtown park open. And I would encourage everyone that's at this meeting tonight to submit what they think a great name would be for what's currently the Rotary Pavilion before it gets turned into a fabulous downtown park.
Thank you. I don't have much. I've done a couple meetings with a regional group that Dr. Larson mentioned. It's a lot of public health folks really coming together. I think Tristan represents us incredibly well, just so we're aware. It's a whole part of her we don't see as we're sitting here. And I think it reflects well on us as a county and a community. So actually with that, I don't really have much else. Let's hop over. So folks, if you're still on, what we'll do is we have to go over to an executive session. The executive session will last approximately 15 minutes. One to consider collective bargaining sessions, the other for minimum price for real estate. No action will be taken, but we're going to have to get out of this meeting and then we'll come back really to adjourn. So thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
Okay, let's go away. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
We're back.
They made a motion to adjourn and everyone left, Dave.
They were fast. Okay.
Hi, they really were.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care. Have a nice night.